Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of Leading on Mondays. My name is Florin Lungo, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today, I'm joined by my teaching partner, Madalina Ginescu. Welcome, Madalina.
Hey, Florin. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited for us today because we are going to talk about the communication shift, which is the shift from directing, like pointing and directing people, to connecting with people. So
Absolutely.
I would like to ask you, Florin, some questions. And the first question would be, why is essential, first of all, for leaders to have this communication shift?
Yeah, I think if we look at what leadership is today, and if we look at how the Z generation and the Y generation expect to be led, they don't expect to be told what to do. And if someone is like millennials or our age and have been, for example, brought up in an environment like I was in and like you were in the post-communist Romania, like leadership was all about telling people what to do. Like
Yeah.
leaders or managers or bosses, right? Bosses were telling people what to do. And so although we know that at some stages in the team development journey, a team might need a more directive leadership style. So, for example, when the team is formed at the very beginning and a lot of things are new, they would turn towards the leader for answers, right? The leader should have a little bit more answers than when we have a mature team. So, although the directing part, it's part of the leader's journey and the team's journey, when the team is mature enough, the leader should make this shift from directing people to connecting with them and to connecting with them personally. So I believe that in today's world, if we give directions to people, it's it's not as a productive way of leading as if we actually include people. Think about hiring really sharp people and tell them what to do. Why would you want to do that? And who would want to be on that team with a leader that tells people what to do? So I know that sometimes when we are leaders and we have an area of strength, so for example, if I'm really good in a certain area, right, I tend to get into advising more. I tend to get into directing more because this is my strength, right? But even though I might be really good in this area, I still need to, shift my leadership style and actually include people and connect with them and see where they're coming from and their perspective. So I think for me, this is an essential shift that leaders have to make.
Mm. It's important that you say when we think about directing, it's mainly exactly what you also said, to pointing people what to do or to say exactly what people should do. And it's making you a boss, not a leader in this situation. And I must address this because this is something that I remember we had in the previous episode related to directing people in the case of an emergency. If you
Mm-hmm.
are a leader and there is an emergency, something urgent that needs to be done, let's say like there is a fire in the building, then the leader and also the people in charge shouldn't do the connecting way of discussing with people, saying, yeah, you know what, uh, John or Ben, there is a fire in the building, would you like to put it out? Definitely
I'm
you
not
won't.
sure. And how big is the fire, right? And
Yeah, it depends on that. But leaving the joke aside, we can imagine that there might be some situations, and we can all relate to when the leader should direct people. But there is one prerequisite for that, one requirement for people to actually be able to follow directions from the leader. First of all, if the leader already connected with the people. So I think
Mm.
this is a very important prerequisite. We as leaders, we can direct people in, especially in an emergency case, but only after we connected with people first in, let's say, a time of peace, when nothing is urgent and important to do at the moment. So what would you, if you have any example, maybe you have an example in your life where you directed people instead of
Yeah,
connecting. Do you have an
absolutely.
example like that?
Yeah, if I look back at how my leadership journey started, in the kind of upbringing I had, like in the post-communist Romania, and not necessarily this is not necessarily related to communists, but it was the way I was brought up. I spent my summertime vacations, in the countryside with my grandparents, and my grandfather was actually quite quite a strong individual, like a strong character. He was working in the I don't even know how it's called. I think his job is actually not relevant anymore because now we have all these machines creating the. But she was actually working the iron, like with the uh, exactly like we were doing the creating knives and
Was a
axes and
blacksmith or something.
sorry.
Not sure. I think it was a blacksmith or something
Yeah,
creating.
I think so. Yeah. So
I'm
he
not
was
sure the
working.
word in English. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was working the iron, right? And that job required a strong person, but the challenge is that he was bringing that home, right? So we had to do the things that he said we should do, and we had chores, we had schedules. We were not like like on vacation where we wake up at 10 o'clock and or sleep late. No, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock we should be up. We had chores to do around the house and the farm, and or tend the ships or go with them and in the fields. Like it was really, for us, because we were still young, we thought that that was work, and we had to do what he said to do because we could not argue with him. He was the
Yeah.
boss in the house. My mom,
Yeah.
yeah, my mom actually, she worked in a clothing facility, and she was the production manager. And again, when you have 30, 40 women that work in that facility, you cannot just kind of connect with them. You need to give instructions. You need to actually to run the production plan, right? There is no time for a lot of discussions, because you have a rhythm. You have to pass on this clothing from one uh, section to the other, from one stop to the other. So really high pace environment. So she started to direct, and then at home it was the same thing, right? She would direct us. She would tell us what to do, and we had to do the things that we were told to do. So for me, when I started to lead people, I said, well, the first introduction in the work field, I was actually in the production plant for engines, car engines. So again, in that production plant, it's not time for us to kind of see with the workers, so how do you feel today? Although that was necessary, but we thought that there's no time for that, so we just gave these instructions. So that's kind of how I thought leadership is, and that's how I started also, and to tell people what to do, and I didn't know why that didn't work. It worked with maybe some more junior people, but I also had people on my team which were twice my age. And how do I direct them, right? How do I didn't know about connecting. I didn't know about Joe Maxwell. I didn't know about leadership. So I didn't know all these things. And I realized that, well, my method was not working with these people. It was working with more junior ones, but it was not working with more senior ones. So that's when I think by chance, I was at this leadership conference where our CEO gave us one of John Maxwell's books, and that was the 360-degree leader. And that's when I got kind of introduced into, that you can influence also your peers, right? Your team, but also your manager. Because I know that, I have to follow my manager, my boss, whatever he says I have to do. And I was doing the same for my team. So I don't know if it was luck or not, but that's how I got introduced to a different way of working, actually, a different way of leading. And that's when I kind of started to make this shift. It was not consciously. I was just doing because I was trusting what John wrote in that book, and I was just applying that blindly. But
Mm.
I didn't have any influence with these people. They were older than me, more experienced than me. How could I lead them? And that's when I understood that if I don't get interested in them as individuals and connect with them and understand their point of view and what they think about me being their leader, I could not lead them. It was
Mm-hmm.
impossible for me to lead them. So I think that's kind of how I came about this. But and then it was again a very long journey for me to develop this skill. Because at the very beginning, I didn't know what this is. I thought that I'm the manager. I'm the boss, I should have answers, I should direct people. But that didn't work that well. That didn't work that well.
Or maybe it works at the beginning, but not on a long term, because people will see you as a boss, not as a leader, and they will follow you just because you are the boss, not because they want you to follow. They want to
Absolutely.
follow you. So
Yeah.
it's important that you gave this example, because I'm pretty sure many leaders hearing us now are facing with this situation. Come on, I need to direct people. If I don't direct them, what will happen to the job? What will happen to the production plant? Because it's something that we need to do with directions. If not, something everything falls apart. And
Yeah.
in our situation, I think it's a good example what you said, because I would like to ask you the next question: why is important actually? Sorry, why usually people follow that? No, I have too many ideas in my head, like
All right,
like
it's fine.
usual. I'm sorry for this. I would like to ask you now, Florin, to tell us why usually people go ahead with directing instead of connecting. So why do you think they are not going to this communication shift?
Yeah, and so if they are like me, I could put that on lack of awareness. I didn't know at that time what it meant to be a leader. I didn't know. You know, I was not brought that
Mhm.
way. I didn't have an example in my life. If you think about the post-communist Romania, we were not taught that leaders want our good. Like if you think about the role models we had, like politicians and people that had influence, we have been brought up in an environment where people took advantage if they have power. So we were not taught that leaders actually their only goal is to help their people develop. So that could be maybe you didn't know that, right? And in my case, that was the case. I was brought up not knowing this. So there could be a lack of awareness. There could be a lack of awareness in the way that you don't really know what the role of the leader is. Many times many leaders are hands-on, which means that they focus on one area of the business, or maybe they are an entrepreneur and they run the business, and they don't focus enough on people. So if you don't focus enough on people, right, and you are really strong in one area, you end up directing people. And it's just because that's the way they've done it up until now, and it has worked to some extent, and they don't know any better. So you listening to this episode today, maybe that's you open up your mind and consider, okay, so is this the best way? Can some things could be done better? So I think that's one of the things. But then also it's insecurity and not wanted to
Yeah.
be vulnerable. Because think about us, if we direct and tell people what to do, for us to actually ask a question, right? For us to include the team, for us to be interested in the individual. If I'm interested in Madalina and want to connect with Madalina, it means that I have to some extent be vulnerable myself. I cannot just ask you some personal questions so to get to know you without sharing anything on my side. It will sound like more like an interrogatory, right? If I'm asking you a question that I'm not willing to answer, right? What if you ask me back? What if you, what about you, Florin? And then it's a question that I don't want to answer, right? So
Yeah.
it takes a level of vulnerability from the leader side in order to open up and admit, okay, so I might not have all the answers. So if I don't have all the answers, then directing might not be the best way. So how can I get interested in Madalina as an individual? If I want to create a long-term relationship, I cannot just tell people what to do. I need to connect. And so insecurity, vulnerability, wanted to hold on to the position, right? Wanted to hold on to the position because if I'm the leader and I don't have answers, like what's my use? Like I'll become useless. So sometimes holding on to information and just directing people and giving that information to people when we think it gives us a position of power, sometimes that's also a behavior that we see. So these will be some of the things that hold people back. What do
Yeah.
you see?
Yeah. Go ahead.
What do you see maybe now benefits when you have seen that working and people making the shift from directing to connecting?
First of all, I think that, of course, as usual, I would say to gain influence, because once you get to know people better and you know their struggles, you know their challenges, you know their dreams, their values, what is important to them, you actually and you realize that you put that into practice, meaning that you heard them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is a benefit of your influence is growing, because you feel more connected and your people are connected more to you, are more connected to you in this case. So that would be one benefit. Another one would be to what you actually mentioned at the beginning, and not only at the beginning but in in all the discussion, is to actually get the shift from boss to leader, because
Mm-hmm.
the boss is directing and mainly directing and has insecurities and doesn't want to grow, to go to the next level. The boss wants their people to be put in their place. And once you get to this shift to actually connecting with people, means that you become more and more a boss, a leader, sorry, you become more and more a leader, as including people in the equation. Another thing is, of course, that you get to know your people better, and that it will be another benefit, and you can actually understand what can be their perfect roles in the team, because of their strengths, their weaknesses. You actually know exactly what motivates them, and you know how to put the people in the right place, the right people in the right place. And another thing would be, when we connect with people, we actually learn from their experience. We,
Absolutely.
as leaders, by asking questions and just listening, even though you can be a leader that might not have enough expertise in the topic as an expert in that topic from your team, then you have the opportunity to actually find out more about that. So
Sure.
it's not like you are dumb because you don't know everything. Come on, you're a leader. You well, the more you know, the better, but you shouldn't see it as a weakness if you don't know everything from everybody, because that would be to be that would mean to be a superhuman. To
Yeah.
know, to be expert in every little detail and every little topic that everybody in your team has. So shouldn't you shouldn't see that as a weakness. And the opportunity for you to grow in knowledge also is to ask questions and to listen to the people, because they will teach you more than you can know about the topic.
Yeah, and that's also one of the challenges that I see sometimes leaders, facing, is that they believe that they should have the answers, right? And that it's a
Yes.
sign of weakness if we don't have the answers. But on the other side, we know that the moment we say, "Well, I don't have all the answers," and my team, you know better than me in these areas. That's when we build this connection. Because let's face it, people know when you don't know, right? Like, I mean, they know by the
Try to
type of
cover it.
questions, right? By the type of questions you're asking, by the type of answer you're giving, right? People know, right? And then if you just admit it, everyone will be relieved. Okay, so yeah, I mean, finally he admitted that he doesn't know. We all knew it.
He's authentic. He's
Exactly.
authentic and sincere with
Right.
us.
So that's when you create that kind of relationship and that kind of connecting, right? That connection, because then they say, okay, so I can trust Florin because Florin admits that doesn't know. And it's not a problem that I don't say that I don't know in one area. The challenge is that when we as a team we need to take bigger risks, that they don't trust me, because what if Florin doesn't know in this area neither, but he doesn't want to admit it? Do you want to be on a boat that goes through a, in a wreck, or that goes in the shore? No, right? I want to be on a boat that I know the captain knows what to do in times of, um, let's say, storm,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that thing that you just said there, like, us making the shift will allow, people to kind of trust us and connect with us. I think it's a prerequisite, right? One of the things that people leaders should do should be vulnerable.
Yeah, and if I can add one more thing that I usually hear when I'm discussing with people in coaching, there is this distinction that people who are, let's say, experts or have a big experience in their field, they have leaders or managers above them that have lack of experience in that, and it's very frustrating to the person below
Yeah.
because come on, my manager gains more money than I do, and I'm the expert in this one, and I know everything I need to do in this one, and I'm doing my job well, but he doesn't know, because usually it's a he doesn't know. So I'm frustrated because of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
I'm
what you
pretty
mean.
sure you also have the same examples in your coaching sessions.
I know what I mean. But also like that's when I talk about lack of awareness, that's one of the example, because the person is not aware what the role of a leader is. The role
Yes,
of a leader is not to have all the answers, right? And if they believe that the manager should have all the answers, know all the technical fields in team, then it's also like, why do you need so many people on the team if you have all the answers? So I don't think that
exactly.
person would neither want their manager to tell them what to do, right?
Yeah, they won't be able, yeah, they won't be
Yeah,
able to actually say to them. And this is exactly the distinction that you pointed out very well, because people who are expert and they are frustrated because of a leader who doesn't have enough experience means that they don't know exactly what is the main role of a leader. So in our of course the leaders can be bad or the leaders can be mediocre, but we are discussing about let's say the leaders that actually are leaders related to the experts in the team. So be aware when you make yourself vulnerable in the face of your team, in front of your team, because that doesn't mean that you are, let's say, God or a Superman, and you are not touched by anything. That means that you are a human being, and your role is here to just to communicate and to get the team to the right point, direct them to the right up. By the way, directing your team to the goal, and not actually be the expert in everything, every area of your team.
yeah,
So, related to this, I would like to ask you one more question. How can anybody who is usually directing people and they've figured out now, wow, I'm directing people instead of connecting with them, how can we do the shift from directing to communicating? What are some practice steps?
yeah. I think the first is humility, like just admitting that we don't have the answers and being open and being comfortable in asking for help. Like if we understand the role of a leader, I had a leader that I interview in the other shows that we have on Wednesdays, Leadership for the Now. And what he said, as a leader, your role, you are more of a communication and information hub. In other words, he said, you should make sure that the right information travels through the company from the right person to the right recipient in the timeless way. You collect information from your team, you interpret that information, you put it in a form that other people in the organization or other team members are able to use it. That's what he said the role of a leader is. Think about that, right? So I don't need to know everything, but I need to have the bigger picture, right? If I'm a leader, I don't need to know all the details of your job, but if I'm able to connect what you're doing with what your colleague is doing and with the other department, with the bigger goal of the company, with our strategy, that's my role, right?
Mhm.
And for me to do that, I need to have some insight in how these parts work together, right? But I don't need to know all the details, right? I don't need to know how you're going to do that, but I need to know what we're going to do, right? We're going to deliver this project by this date. How? I don't know. That's my team expertise. But us, we need to be very comfortable as leaders with that situation. And we need to be very comfortable in actually asking for help, and also admitting that we don't have the answers. And when we do that, right, this opens up actually for us the situation to make that shift, because the moment you say, well, I don't have all the answers, then okay, you give up your right to direct. Because if you don't have the answers and you direct, that's a really bad situation, right?
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
be directed by someone that doesn't have the answer? Who wants to be a passenger in a car driven by someone that doesn't know how to drive?
Yep.
I don't. I don't.
Nope.
I don't. I don't want to watch, because that
Nope.
would be a very uncomfortable ride for me. I'm a control freak. That was me. I wanted to drive the minibus, right? I wanted to drive the bus, even the tram sometime, because I felt that the person is driving too fast, too close to other people, and I was, I was
I see
right.
now.
I was
Yeah.
not in control, so it didn't felt safe for me, right?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but having the humility and say we don't have all the answers. My role is to be able to connect and give you the information you need, support you in in doing your best work. That opens up for us to go towards connecting. And how can we direct if we don't have the answers? The next one, it will be to still be curious, like curiosity mindset. Think about, if we think we have all the answers, then we don't ask questions. And there are people around us, there are people on our team, as you mentioned, that have better insight into a certain area. And if we don't ask questions, and if we don't ask the right kind of questions, and also if we don't allow the time in those meetings, in those discussions, for the person to answer, then we're going to miss some information. And that's asking questions, right? And not why do you think is that way. Well, help me understand your perspective. When you've done this in the past, I know you worked at Renault, I know you work at Volvo, like how did you do that there, right? Can you share from some of your experience? Because people sit on huge amounts of experience, and if we are not one of these connecting leaders, what we do, we just dismiss that information. So again, humility, curiosity, and also connecting with people requires effort. In other words, you know, I need to be intentional. In order for me to create a long-term relationship with Madalina, I need to be intentional. I need to be mindful that, well, Madalina, for example, is passionate about something, and I know she was, you know, doing something related to that passion this weekend. So when she comes back to work on Monday, I might want to know, how did it go? Right? Maybe I don't know what that passion is, but that it's effort. And so for so many leaders, they feel this is not, they don't have the time to do that. They feel, well, I don't have the time to sit with each of my team members and actually ask about, their private life and the passion and the hobbies. But the challenge is that's where the motivation lies. If we believe people get up in the morning excited to do the work that we want them to do in the workplace, we're wrong. People get excited to come to office to ideally work on a bigger mission. So let's say the company should have a bigger mission and they are part of that. Worst case scenario, they just want to finance their hobbies.
Yeah.
I mean, and most people, many people are at that level. I'm happy with the kind of work. I'm just coming here, do my work, leave at 3 o'clock, whatever the time is, and I'm happy to spend the rest of my day, doing what I like to do. Right? So
Yeah.
as leaders, we have to be mindful of that. Because if we assume that people are excited about this, then we miss opportunities. And we don't think we need to connect with them. We don't think this is important. But I think it is. At least that's my experience.
Oh, nice, very nice. I'm so happy that we shared together with our listeners about this shift, communication shift from directing to connecting. And we need to let you know that this is the last episode from the leadership mindset shift, but it's not the last episode on leading with Mondays,
No.
because next week we are going to shift to a different topic, which is related to feedback. So if you can tell us a little more about the topic, Florin, so everybody will
Absolutely.
know what it will be about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we think that in this period, right, this is more or less the appraisal period, right? So now many organizations, many leaders actually discuss about, discuss the goal of the year, maybe set goals for next year, maybe have a review, a feedback meeting, right? And so we thought that this is one of the really relevant topics right now. And so we're going to discuss four keys, four ways for you to be able to to deliver, personal, personalized feedback that touches the minds but also the hearts of people without being rude or overly critical. I think that's the challenge. Four keys to deliver personalized feedback that touches the heart and minds of people without being critical or overly subjective.
Wow, and I think it's also related to our personal lives. How can we give a feedback
Uh,
to the people in
Absolutely.
our life, not only at work? That's a
Well,
big topic.
that
I'm
that's even more that's even more challenging, right? That's even more challenging. But I think people will find something that will actually help them in that. I'm really excited about that. I just wanted to bring this online as well. I'm gonna do this in person on Wednesday, this Wednesday in Gothenburg. But I thought that our audience that is not able to join us in person might wanna listen to this. So um, this is our attempt to do that. So I'm so excited about that, and I look forward to see you on Monday.
likewise.
All right,
Bye,
take care.
everybody.
Speak soon. Bye
Take
bye.